All right.
Yeah. I'm super thankful for where I'm at today. What
Okay.
did you expect? Give me 5K.
See how this goes. So I got to not project. Welcome, everybody, to Barhauss Weightlifting's video podcast, recorded thing that we're doing here. I'm Ryan. This is Veesta V. This is JD Melnick. And today, we're here to talk. We're here to discuss. Honestly, we're just here to cover some stuff that I feel like needs to be covered. So I think the first thing we need to talk about is who we are, really. Veesta, who are you?
Who am I? Well, my name is Veesta. I am a Persian American female. Do we want to get into that?
Your profile. This is really why we brought you here.
Yeah.
I love
Your Instagram
I'm
tags.
going to stop for a moment, though. We didn't introduce Marco.
We did not. I
This
apologize,
is my
Marco.
child. If anyone can appreciate dog mom life, that is a big part of who I am now. He takes up as much of my life as my work as a yoga teacher now. So my background is in social work. And as much as I did enjoy that part of my life, with the pandemic, I switched career paths, and now I teach yoga full time. We'll talk about full time and what that actually means and what my life looks like now, but that's essentially what I do day to day. I figure out what Marco needs, and then I teach classes in studios, one-on-one, etc. I know you, Ryan, from personal training. I would say the biggest part of my fitness journey, I didn't start getting into fitness until I was in college, really trying to work out in a gym. And then from there, I met you through Groupon. I came to your studio or your gym.
Good old Groupon.
Good old Groupon. And I stayed for whatever reason. And then you rehabbed me. A big part of that was you rehabbed me when I tore my ACL. And I'll never forget that because that sucked. And so, yeah, that's how we know each other.
So now, before we get too deep into it, because we are going to cover all that fun stuff, JD,
Yeah.
who are you?
Oh, yeah. Well, Ryan and I met. We worked together at the fruit stand and
Fruit stand.
the good old fruit stand, the Apple store, and he was I don't even know how the conversation started, but it was weightlifting of sorts, and I said, yeah, I do a little bit of weightlifting, and he's like, I got a gym, and I was like, cool.
I think I commented on your jeans.
That might have been.
I think it was a man crush. I think
Yeah.
I was checking out your glutes.
Yeah, I filled my jeans nicely, I guess. That's how I met my wife. She's like, who's that weird guy with the big butt and walks like John Wayne? CrossFit, you know what I mean? So yeah, we met, and then you're just like, yeah, I got a gym, and I was like, sick. Do you mind if I show up and lift? And you're like, yeah, what time? I'm like 5 a.m. You're like, you're crazy. Okay, that's fine. And then
I don't
so
even open at 5 a.m.
yeah, he's like, here, I guess, cool. Yeah, here you go, man. And yeah, that's how I started, lifting at your gym a little bit here and there. But my background is I have 10 years experience in CrossFit and weightlifting. I found CrossFit in 2011. I was about 100 pounds overweight, and doctors were like, yeah, you're just 25 pounds overweight. You're just not an athletic dude. It's fine. Be an artist. I was like, okay, that sounds weird. You're a doctor.
Somebody would have told me to be an artist.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, and then I found, I was like, oh, the 300 workout's kind of cool, and then the word CrossFit was in there somewhere, and then I was like, what's CrossFit? And I found that, and I started doing it in my garage with my buddies, and we did a bunch of stupid stuff. CrossFit was really immature back in 2010, 2011. It's still trying to figure itself out. I'd say that only now in the past couple of years has it really started to step into something a little bit more appropriate. But yeah, anyway, I got really involved, and I lost about 100 pounds, and I was like, this is great. Oh my gosh, this is awesome. The most athletic I've ever been, started competing, state competitions and stuff like that. And I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe I can do this. I felt like a superhero. And then I got involved in the fitness industry because I'm like, well, if I'm someone who went from chunky to hunky, I'm sure there's other people that really struggle and think that they're trapped in their bodies, and that the medical industry's failed them and told them, medical industry pretending to be the health industry and being like, hey, you're just a bigger guy. Working out's bad for you. High impact's bad for you. Don't do any sort of intensity. Don't get your heart rate above this, and this. It's bad for you. And it's just like, holy crap. There's a lot of information out there that may just be a little bit outdated. And so I got involved, and I specifically worked with I loved working with moms because my favorite thing is watching a mom get her first pull-up, because they've had kids, their body's been torn apart, they don't think they have any sort of strength anymore, when in reality they have the most strength out there. Yeah. It's just really recalibrating the body, getting the abdomen right, re-engaged and all that stuff. And so I got really into human mechanics and body movement, stuff like that. And then, spent my time in the industry, and only just in the past, I'd say year, left it professionally because it wasn't something I could do time-wise professionally anymore. So stepped into the tech space, YouTube channel.
That was actually what I was going to say next was now, funny thing, getting you here, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get you because you haven't been in a part of the industry necessarily. Like, obviously, you still lift, you still do stuff. Yeah. You're still more active than I am. But I didn't know because you have a YouTube channel already, right? What is your channel that you do, if you want to talk about it? Yeah, I mean, quickly, I make videos. They're more considered, I guess, lifestyle than what I thought. They're not really tech videos, but I'm involved in the video game niche. And subliminally, I'm working on presenting mental health solutions to video gamers in the form of community-based videos. So I make vlogs and stuff like that about video games. I have a podcast called Button Mashers. It's about video games, but it's more about the gamer, not the games. The podcast coming out a little bit is all about mental health in the video game space and addiction and stuff like that. But it's, I think of myself when I was 16 years old, sitting by myself in the racquetball courts playing Game Boy. If this community that I'm trying to build now existed back then, it would save me a lot of heartache. Potentially gotten me into a fitness place a little bit sooner. Would have taught me I'm capable. Would have taught me I'm strong enough, I'm good enough. Sure. So in the video game space, I've just taken all of the application I've got from the fitness industry and understanding empowerment and self-development and self-worth that you can get through movement, and applying it towards mental stuff. Right. I'm not a professional when it comes to mental. I have no degrees in that. I just know feeling good is something that everyone should be able to do. So yeah, I know exactly. And it's kind of funny that you say that because, and I mean, you especially know, I always joke that I'm an underpaid therapist when I'm here. And that's, it's a joke, but that's true. That's what we do. You guys know. And I mean, that's great. I think mental health is something that is undervalued. Not only undervalued, but I just feel like we are now kind of moving towards a position where it's more normalized. You know what I'm saying? So that being said, my question then to you is, how did you come to your journey? Not just your fitness journey, right? But what made you want to become a professional? Because you and I had talked for a long time about you wanting to do stuff. You know what I mean? And I remember a lot of days when I was like, what the heck are you doing? Like, just do it.
Just do it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that part of my experience, I think what you brought up too, it kind of reminds us that everything does come back to this whole full person examination of like the human experience. And it's not just like how we fill our time as far as like hobbies or work or things like that. Like there has to be this other space where we move energy. And I think that's through physical activities like pushing heavy weights, like doing yoga, practicing pranayama, breath, And so I think at the time when we were working together, right? How
long did we work together?
2 or 3 years. Okay. I think it was 2 or 3 years. It was between when I had, gone into my first job, career, whatever, thinking I knew what I wanted to do after college, and then getting into grad school. And that was when I stopped working with you because grad school was making me a crazy person, and the gym was no longer this place where I could just find my peace, because that was what it was for the longest time. Right. But it then became like more stressful to keep incorporating that and keep this idea of like, I'm supposed to do these things and look a certain way. But I think a big part of what I wanted to say in that was expecting that like you have to do a certain thing in order to be successful. The supposed to is what I like to call it. You're supposed to go to school and get this job and work full time and bust your ass for what? And then live in a certain type of house and dwelling with people that you call like your spouse or partner or whatever, and kids and this and that, and nothing wrong with that. It's just like, is that really what calls to me? It actually wasn't, because I was doing all these things I'm supposed to, waking up every day like, shit, now how much longer will this all take? And I think that in 2020, like pandemic aside, a lot of things were removed from my life in a way that I like needed them to happen. Because I wouldn't have said no to them. I wouldn't have ended a relationship that I needed to end. I wouldn't have gotten out of the job that I needed to get out of. Like, I had to be forced into this really uncomfortable space and told, like, okay, now you need to change and do something differently that works better for you. And that's when I was like, spent a month in the lowest kind of depression. I've never had like the thoughts that I had at the time. It's really hard for me to say, but I like actually thought like, there's no point in being here anymore. Yeah. And it like, and then after feeling sorry for myself, after having a really strong support system, I was like, okay, I have this other skill, which is yoga. And I went through the teacher training for a reason. And I've always I've envisioned myself in a studio teaching a class. Why am I not doing it? So I did. And it's the best. It's like, I'm so broke, but I'm so happy. And it's so perfect. Like it all happened.
Isn't that what all coaches feel like?
Oh my gosh,
I'm
dude.
so broke.
That's why I left. I'm like, I just had a kid and I need to like figure out how I'm going to make this work and stuff like that. And like part of the reason why I got into what I'm doing is because, you know, end goal, I can at some point coast it, right? It's something that's self-sustaining. Right. It takes a freaking shit ton of work to get there, and it's going to be years before I can do that. But I mean, big picture, I'll have a gym one day. Like it's just probably not going to be for another 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually back to your point, it's nice to see that. I haven't seen that passion in your face in a long time. Now, granted, you and I haven't worked together in a long time, but I haven't seen that passion in a long time. So it's really cool to see, you know, the thing that you finally decided, you know, hey, I'm gonna fucking do this.
Absolutely.
So that's rad. JD, what brought you? What was your journey? You already kind of mentioned you lost 100 pounds. I mean, that's amazing. So congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it was the thought that like I was a certain way my whole life because I was told that's what I was supposed to be. And I've always struggled with the idea of, for lack of a better term, the establishment, whatever you want to cast that onto. I've always questioned authority and like different rules,
social norms, authoritarian,
whatever.
It all sucks.
Yeah,
it's all shit.
I've always wanted to be like someone would be like, do this, and I'm like, unless there's a why, I have a hard time, really hard time. And so, you know, when I found, you know, my success in the CrossFit world and doing that, and then the community as well, because, you know, with working out, up until that point, it was a very like a lonely thing. And I already had so much loneliness being overweight and someone who played video games as a stereotypical gamer. Like I was really, really lonely. So I'm like, I don't want to go and be by myself in a gym with headphones on. That seems like just another cage. So that was something I was like, nah, can't do that. You know, I'll started with my friends like, hey, you want to go for a walk? This girl I had a crush on. She had to go to a wedding. She's like, you want to go on a walk? You go on walks? I was like, yeah, more time with you for sure. And then I ended up losing a few pounds because turns out going from doing absolutely nothing to just walking is good enough, you know? Yeah. So that was the beginning of that. And then, you know, cut out a little bit of soda and then all soda. At the worst of it, guys, I was at easily 4 or 5 Dr. Peppers a day.
I remember the first time you told me that.
Oh, yeah.
When we were sitting in the back room.
Oh, yeah.
And you told me that. And I mean, I'm a big dude, but my jaw dropped. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I even at my heaviest, I remember, like, I wasn't drinking soda necessarily. My thing was, you know, fast food.
Yeah.
But I just remember you telling me that, and I was like,
God damn.
Well, my fast food order at McDonald's, which was at least once a week, was 40 chicken nuggets, supersized fry, it was 4 barbecue, 3 sweet and sour, a water, because they didn't have it at the time, a water cup filled with Big Mac sauce, and a Powerade.
Stop.
To be healthy.
A water cup.
Yeah.
A water cup
filled with Big Mac sauce. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. To dip all of it
that.
in. I mean, 275 wasn't easy.
It's so hard not to judge you right now.
I'm still fat. Okay, let's just... I would still eat that.
That was my order. I haven't touched that stuff in like, gosh, probably a decade.
That's a huge commitment.
You're a better person than I am.
I mean, dude, it was tough, man. You and I both know I still eat a ton of meat, but it, you know, yeah, it was tough. I mean, and then in all that, the reason why CrossFit was so powerful to me was community, right? So people, there's something pretty powerful about the idea of community building through pain, especially like you get really close to someone, you go through heartbreak together.
It's a shared misery.
Yeah, exactly. And the camaraderie, the way that it was defined to me once was camaraderie can best be developed when it's pain and suffering mixed with laughter. Yeah. And boy, is that every class. You know, you go through something stupid where you have to do, you know, whatever, a bunch of stupid stuff for 6 minutes. You're on the floor rolling on yourself, just like crying. And then someone's laughing at you, and you're just like, this is great, you know? And that culture shift from, hey, let's go sit and do nothing, to like, hell, you know, like now my buddy comes into town and we're just like, dude, let's work out all day. Let's just do some fun workouts. Let's go for a run. Let's come back. Let's lift some weights, you know? Yeah. And it's such a beautiful community. And then it was all encompassing, you know, with that came the paleo prescription, right? And that style of eating. And I had never had a food prescription before. Yeah. I had always eaten freely, as I just told you, and then tried dieting, and dieting always failed because it was a diet, and that means that there's an end.
What were you trying when you dieted? Like, what was your go-to? Because everybody kind of has their thing.
Yeah,
right?
When I dieted and failed, it was a lot of caloric restriction without understanding macronutrient density.
Right.
So,
the basic. I mean, that's what pretty much everybody says. 1,200 calories or whatever. You know, like
yeah, it was
whatever
like,
their deficit is.
It was like 1,500 calories and don't eat carbs. But I didn't understand what carbs were. I didn't understand that if you're going to reduce carbs, introducing a higher amount of protein is going to help you, or fats for the sustained energy. I didn't understand any of that. I was just like, no carbs, which means no bread, no fruit, not understanding, the vitamin or the micronutrients that happen to the fiber and all that stuff that exists in fruit. And so there was just a lot. So when I was introduced to paleo, and it was like, eat meats, fruits and veggies, nuts, seeds, berries, some fruit, stay away from grains, processed anything, and refined sugars and dairy. And I was like, okay. At first I'm like, that seems like hyper restrictive. And then after, about 3 or 4 months of struggling through it, I realized, it's just eat meat and vegetables and fruit and snack on nuts and berries. And I was like, this is hella tight. It's so easy.
I feel like it's always overcomplicated.
Yeah, dude.
You know what I'm saying?
So I looked up recipes and make this any paleo recipe that's like deep fried almond flour, It's like, don't eat paleo, dude. Like, that's what that is. It's like pretending to be what it isn't. Just
I like that term.
I'm
keeping that.
Paleo? Oh, dude. Paleo is bacon wrapped dates for every meal. That's paleo. That is not that was a big part of it. And it was immature back then too, right? So back in 2011, that style of eating was really, really there was too many people that didn't know a lot that were just like, this is the way to do it. Right. And so now again, 10 years later, 12 years later, there's a lot more understanding of there's the paleo prescription, but also the paleo prescription is macronutrient density, vitamin distribution, fiber, a moderate amount of fiber. And when you get to your fats, where your fat balance is, what kind of fats are you eating? Right. How are you eating them? Are you doing them, in a timed-based manner? Are you doing it before workouts, after workouts?
Right.
You probably shouldn't, because
nutrient partitioning,
exactly,
things
all
like
that stuff.
That's how I feel about keto. When I hear everything you're describing, it's like when keto was a thing, and I'm watching my friend, she's drinking one of those ginormous strawberry shortcake drinks from Starbucks. I'm like, well, this is part of my keto diet. I'm like, that's like a lot of fucking sugar. Yeah. Sister.
How is that?
I don't know. I don't even want to ask.
Oh, dude.
I had no
I can't see anything from Starbucks being keto friendly.
Yeah. But that's...
It's crazy. The keto.
So I love when I hear it successful, doing it right, what you just described. I'm like, yes. Yeah. But give me some of that in the masses. Yeah. I'd love to see that.
And that's kind of whenever someone asks me, because after being in it for you guys get it too, right? Everyone's always just like, what are some first steps I can do? I mean, always I'm like, do you drink soda? And they're just like, oh no. And that's kind of cool that soda's become kind of the back.
It's the cigarette.
It has.
Yeah.
Yes. That is a good point.
It is. And it's kind of making its...
We all kind of do it.
Yeah.
Just kidding. We don't.
It's made its way to the back. And so now in its place, though, is a lot of, sugary juices and sugary drinks that aren't soda, which is basically vaping now, right? So you think it's better for you, but it's not, right? Apple juice is great, yes. And apples are great, but apple juice doesn't have fiber. And fiber is so important when it comes to breaking down sugar and, your gut health and all of that stuff and getting your intestines working properly so you can actually process these things and, the difference between glucose, fructose, all these things. So at any rate, I'm getting into something too crazy.
Don't worry. We're getting into all that.
Okay.
That's here.
That's my passion.
So we are going into that. And but that's why I like you guys. We've all work together in some capacity. And so I love knowing that you guys can get as into the nitty gritty of it as I can, because you've heard my rants. I have ranted in here.
You don't rant. What are you talking about? Ryan's
like
a
an
really
old man.
nice guy. No rants here.
He's basically Samuel L. Jackson on Black Snake Moan.
It's but it's nice because we can have this conversation, but we can also bring it back to really what I think needs to be done is people need to hear these things in a way that's digestible for them.
Yeah.
So we are the fiber.
Oh, damn. Oh, my gosh.
Ryan.
Holy
This.
dude. I've been called an asshole plenty of times. This is perfect.
It works so well.
Close to home.
Had something there, but we're gonna let that go. Go to the next thing.
Yeah.
Now, what I was gonna say was, what made you become a coach? Like, what made you was there a specific thing, or you just wanted to kind of watch that community or help that community thrive? Because I know you said CrossFit was immature.
I didn't know that till much later, though.
Yeah.
When I was in it, I was like, dude, I was the stereotypical CrossFitter.
Right.
Every single thing I did in the gym was videotaped, posted on Instagram, showed to my friends. I want to become a coach because I thought that it was the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah.
I was like, you can get paid to play all day?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
You paid to work out, which
Exactly.
you already love doing. I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of trainers do is they get paid to work out.
And you think, oh, I'm going to get a free membership, right? And there's a lot of stuff that I enjoyed about being a coach. But my initial reason for wanting to become a coach was the idea of being able to do it more and get paid to do it. And then you get to become a coach and you realize, oh, you get to work out for free, but you don't get paid much.
And when
at
you
all.
really have time to work out.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're coaching and you can,
Exactly.
you know, I used to work out with clients when I would do that.
Yeah.
But you're working out 8 times a day at that point.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, I just want to die.
And CrossFit's class-based. So, like,
Right.
yoga classes, like, you get to run, because I think in your classes you get to actually do the flows too.
You can, yeah. So, and there's a lot of conversation around that too. It's
Yeah.
like, is there a right or wrong of being on your mat, doing the entire class with your
Yeah.
students, or is it more professional to be up and about, just guiding,
Yeah.
watching bodies and what's happening, and say, you know what, let me cue this room because I'm seeing a lot of, this happening,
Yeah.
but I want to see this instead.
Where do you fall in that?
I spend a lot of time on my mat, and it depends on the class type. I like to get up and look around. A lot of times I feel like my ability to cue energetically is challenged when I'm not on my mat, because I base a lot of it off of like what I feel in my body.
I was going to say, because you're not in it.
Yeah, but I do think that I help growth happen when I'm off my mat, as far as the physical practice and people like maybe getting a little further than they're used to, because I'm more present with what's actually going on in the room. I want to mention though, like, that's also my experience. Like, I wanted to get into the yoga studio all day, every day, but actually practicing myself is so different. Like the release, the experience, the like stress relief that happens versus teaching a class. Cause a lot of people are like, you do yoga every day. I'm like, I really don't.
Yeah.
Unfortunately I don't. And I have to carve out the time, be very deliberate, allow my body to take a break and push myself to like be in that room, maybe doing it more safely, more compassionately, not pushing myself as hard as I used to when I was only taking classes.
Yeah.
But I think that's a big part of the appeal was like, oh, I get to do yoga every day. Not entirely true.
Yeah. For CrossFit style stuff, we don't do it at the same time, because there's a lot of I don't do it at the same time. I'm not gonna say they don't. I mean, there's a lot of criticism that happens in the CrossFit community because of injury and improper coaching and lack of education, you name it. You're getting someone doing, a snatch, one of the most complex lifts out there, moving away from ground to overhead in one movement. And you don't have the proper knowledge to get someone's body moving. You haven't asked the right questions. You haven't watched them and done their stuff, or you're just sitting there trying to get them to do 50 in a row. You get yourself into a lot of trouble. I had an absurdly high standard that I put on myself. I didn't even let myself drink water when I was coaching. Nothing in my hands. My hands not in my pockets. I was like wildly strict on my own body movements in the classes. Lots of eye contact and stuff like that. It was exhausting.
I would say though that you are that is a more rare quality for a coach from my experience. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not a CrossFitter.
Yeah.
I never have been. And I have always either coached bodybuilding or powerlifting.
Yeah.
And so the CrossFit, I have a background in weightlifting from football. However, I always made the joke that CrossFit injuries keep me in business for rehabilitative
It's true.
stuff.
It's absolutely true.
And so that's why you as a coach and knowing your mentality, because you and I have worked out together a handful of times, and knowing your mentality was the reason that I kind of came around to CrossFit more.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even, I don't want to say I don't respect it. I do, because I respect anything that gets people moving. You and I have had that conversation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And anything that's consistent and anything that makes people move.
Yeah.
As long as they're doing it safely. So that's why I have an immense amount of respect for you, because you are one of the few coaches who gives a shit. You know what I'm saying? And I say that
I know
a little bit of
I know what you
hyperbole,
mean.
but
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. And it didn't come, naturally at first, right? I had mentors. I sought out, instruction. I'm very, very firm believer of like always having people who are better than you in your life. Because you'll never get better unless you have that. And then passing that to someone who wants that knowledge, right? Always have that that train going in your life. But that was huge for me. And so when it came to, CrossFit and doing those classes, I remember leaving. I remember when I left the CrossFit world just recently, there's part of me that, I still have that emptiness. Like I will always be a coach. Always. It's impossible for me not to.
Of course. I mean, it was a not only a huge chunk of your life, but I mean, it was a career.
It was a career. I did it for a decade and competed in it. It changed my life. I was obsessed with it. Inappropriately at times and then appropriately later in life. But yeah, dude, it was such a huge part of my life. But I remember that first month of me not coaching anymore, how much energy I had. Yeah. Because I'm like, holy crap. I get like every single day I gave a part of myself away. Yeah. It was just so intense. So intense. In in some ways emotional, right? Like I'd have classes where, moms or
even thinking about it, like it's just kind of funny. I get choked up because I start to think of the people that I've worked with. Yeah. And it's the same. Yeah. I get it. There's an unbelievable, you and I have cried together yelling at each other over a deadlift. So yeah, I get it.
Just seeing that. Yeah. Seeing somebody doing something incredible, right? It's not even just it's not seeing them do it. We've all seen crazy feats of strength.
Yeah, they're all over
Instagram. Seeing
Seeing
them understand they did it. Correct. That's what kills you.
Correct.
When you look into their eyes and you realize that
it's the click.
That mom, I always go back to the moms because it's so impressive. They're the most incredible people to work with. Yeah. Pull 200-pound deadlift. It's just like they can't believe they did it. They almost peed their pants. Some of them they did pee their pants because their pelvic floor is not strong enough anymore.
Happens to the best of us.
And you know what? They push babies through their vaginas. I get it. But oh man, it's the most amazing. You can't, aside from childbirth, you can't see something more beautiful, right?
And that actually, it's kind of interesting because we talk a lot about this is it's Barhauss Weightlifting. That's what we are, or that's what I am. But the point being that yoga is a huge chunk of it in terms of like we talk about moms, we talk about post pregnancy and things like that. Yeah. And I mean, yoga is just as big because you during pregnancy you can't move. You have a hard time doing a lot of stuff and your body changes so much. So have you seen, I don't know have you worked with a lot of pregnant or post-pregnancy?
Yeah, absolutely. I had one student in particular that comes to mind. I wasn't sure what was going on with her body and how it maybe was changing. And she chose not to tell me that she was pregnant. She came to one of my strength-based yoga classes, yoga with weights, and I saw her doing some things kind of in the back corner where she wasn't quite following along, but she was still around where we were at. And I just noticed, I observed, and she was making a lot of modifications for her growing baby. Yeah. And I love that because she took care of her. And a few things for that, like I've never gone through what she's gone through. So who am I to tell her how to take care of her body? Right. I really appreciated her wanting to be there, wanting to be treated like everyone else is what she ended up telling me. At the same time, once we had that conversation, I had an opportunity to learn a lot from her. And I think that's what's so cool in that yoga studio. It's constant exchange of information and learning. And I'm not a teacher per se, like in that moment, I'm definitely a student. Right. I work one-on-one with a mom right now. First time having a baby. First time ever trying yoga was when she became pregnant. I'm like, cool, and now you choose to work with me. So how do we navigate that really carefully and in accordance with like what it is that you need? But I think it's really cool, like just to see all that land with someone and for them to experience, for me, like those moments that you were talking about where it kind of clicks. It's in this space of like where yoga is a very personal thing, but there's an energy in the room when everyone breathes together. And you just feel this letting go of their bullshit day or the energy that is required of them from all these other people, like demanding it and all these things in their life. But then suddenly there's this unanimous like feeling of we're here now and it's all good. And that's really cool to me. And
I think we spend way too much time in just day-to-day life and not it. We have so many distractions. My stupid ass phone going off on my podcast. So, there's things like that. There's just distractions. And I think we need those moments. A great thing that I've seen I know people that are starting to pick up yoga, and kind of the beginner yoga kind of transitions us into our next thing that I kind of want to touch on. But just real quick for my background, because I'm sure everybody already knows my background that knows me, that's watching this. Super overweight, lost 100 pounds, played football, weightlifting, powerlifting. Now overweight because I had a kid and a pandemic and emotional eater. So there we go. And that's
I heard emotional leader, which I just imagined you scream crying someone to do something.
It's basically the same thing.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, that's essentially what I do.
It's the same. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't.
Please
just choose.
That's my everyday now. Once I stopped yelling at them like aggressively and they broke me from, just being
you just ask sadly.
Yeah, I just ask sadly, and people it works.
People love that because they just change your day by doing that thing that you ask them to do.
What's funny?
But that being said, one of the things that I've owned my gym for 10 years, give or take. I've been in the industry training for 12.
Snaps for Ryan.
Thank you. Things have changed a lot throughout that, but I guess kind of the same thing. I enjoyed doing stuff on my own. So you and I are different in that way. In my loss of weight, but see, my loss of weight, and I didn't want anybody to be like this because it's a terrible mental space to be in. I did it almost as a punishment. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did it like, wow, how did you let this happen? Blah, blah, blah. And the doctor had told me you're going to be dead by 35. This was when I was like 22, maybe. I don't remember how old I was. And lost a bunch of weight. But I realized being by myself in a garage on an elliptical every day for an hour. I remember the one time I remember distinctly was being in the garage Christmas Day on the elliptical at 4 a.m. to do it before everybody got up to get my hour done. And I did it, lost 100 pounds, but I was miserable, and I never wanted anybody else to be that miserable. And my Pilates instructor that I was seeing at the time, because my mom and I would go to Pilates in the morning, because my mom was a huge supporter of what I did, and it was awesome. And but my Pilates instructor was like, "Hey, why don't you be a trainer?" And I was like, "Well, how do I do that?" And she was like, "Well, you get a certification." I was like, "Okay, cool." I went and got my cert, my NASM cert. That I had it for a long time. Now I just collectively know what I know and do what I do. And I've learned a lot of it through people throughout the years working with them, like the ACL tear and things like that. And, but I didn't want people to do it alone, and because it sucks.
Yeah. I failed alone all the time. I needed that community. I needed that push. Yeah. Also, I had lack of knowledge. Yeah. So I sit there looking at what I'm doing. I don't know. I'm not sweating. My heart rate didn't really rate. I didn't know. I had no clue.
Yeah, and I think that's what this little conversation, this little round table is what I want to focus on. Is I want people, the square table, the Knights of the Square table.
Sorry.
That was great. I wanted somebody to acknowledge it, so I'm glad that you did, because if you didn't, I was going to.
Yeah.
We are focusing on beginners here.
He can lift weights. He does no shapes.
No geometry, no. Terrible math, terrible.
Yeah.
I can do plate math.
You can count to 4.
Yeah.
Great musician.
I just know if... That's why I married a dancer. My wife was a Disney dancer, so I can.
You count backwards.
Yeah, there you go.
Only.
Yeah. 5, 6, 7, 8.
At school. 8. Starting at the top.
My poor kid's gonna be an idiot because of me.
I don't know how to count.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
Yeah.
Folks, so beginners.
Come back to
me. I got really loud. I need to bring myself down.
It's all right.
I get excited. Beginners. I think there's a lot of people still.
Yeah.
who don't know how to do this, or who don't know that Starbucks probably isn't keto friendly, or whatever.
It can be.
I think
Drink it black, dude.
Tried really hard.
So I have a feeling. Well, I guess if you do all the fake sugars, right? If you do fake sweeteners.
Yeah, but then you still have to deal with the ramifications of sugar alcohols and what that does to the gut biome. But that's a completely different
Sugar
world.
alcohol is that. I learned a lot about sugar alcohol working with someone who is really into nutrition. And
let's talk about it. I mean, because I know less about it than you do. I can guarantee that.
One of the big things I learned and I will never let it go. Every time I look at a label and I'm like, this tastes really good, and it says 0 sugar, I'm like, oh, because they don't have to say that there's sugar alcohols in it on the labels, like protein bars or whatever. I live off of those, which is really rough because you know how protein bars are, and
they're
bricks.
Garbage. Yeah,
they're really, really tough on the little keister. Sorry,
fiber for the fitness.
I'm 107.
Yeah, so that's a big thing that I had a problem with, and so at one point when I was in the social work world, I was facilitating a diabetes prevention group. English is going to come back soon to my brain. Yeah, diabetes prevention group.
You keep talking.
Yeah,
so
we'll give you time.
Yeah. So, and they're like, well, I want to eat bars. I want to get some protein in an easy way and not have to like think about my next meal so much. And it's like trying to come up with a list of options for them that was okay for what they're going through for each of their individual needs. And it's like, there's so many lies in our food, and I hate that because it's such a tricky thing to navigate. And at one point it just gets like, I become that person who's like, well, I might as well go with like the least awful thing. Yeah. And accept that I'm not making the best choice for myself right now. And it's kind of like, I don't like to be that passive in my life, but life happens and we get to this point where there's just all the chaos in the world. I think that's what's important to me, is to make it okay to be a beginner, make it okay to have these moments where you're just grabbing for whatever you can because that's the best you've got today. And it's okay. That happens and we go through those phases. So let's at least inform folks.
Yeah.